It's a fairy tale adults tell children, and then some children grow up continuing to believe the fairy tale, and then you have, thankfully, science. And frankly, religion should be one of those things that there should be no proselytizing whatsoever. I have about this much time divided by 1,000 for religion. So Christianity has got nothing unique in religion, nothing whatsoever. Cuckoo! It's nuts. You only believe because you were told.
Well, hello again. I just finished probably what is probably one of my most hostile encounters in Christian street conversation so far. A gentleman who was, well, obviously very opinionated, but very much hostile to religion, and wasn't afraid to tell me so. And while he probably thought initially, rightly so, that this was just a normal conversation, but once I started to provide my opinions, which were very much Christian in nature, I think he started to lose it a little bit and started lashing out, ultimately left. I grieve for him. I wish him well. I wish that he would use his passion to basically spend more time finding out what the truth is. What is it that the claims of religion, what the claims of Christianity really are. I think he was thinking that he knew facts about Christianity, facts about other things, but ultimately I doubt that he really spent too much time investigating these things, or maybe he just let someone tell him those things, so ultimately he got angry either way. So my heart goes out to him. I do wish that we encounter paths again, maybe in a little bit more of a peaceful way, let's say that. And I don't know again how much of this conversation would have been interrupted by the wind, because I had a couple of cutouts on my phone, but yeah, pray for this man, pray that he spends time understanding what is it truly at the root of the Christian claims. What is it about the uniqueness of Christ's sacrifice that changed the world 2,000 years ago, so that he would at least understand that, even though he still rejects it. My prayer is that he wouldn't. My prayer is that he would apply this passion to serve his Lord and Master, not the world, not the devil and his lies. So thank you. Hope to see you soon in the next video. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought. God bless. Do you have any faith? Do you have any beliefs, any religion? Where are you, sort of?
So, born into the Roman Catholic faith.
Okay.
Primary school education, secondary school education, confirmation, Holy Communion, all that sort of pomp and ceremony. And then, for me anyway, and most of my peer group, it's a sort of, you realise it's a fairy tale adults tell children, and then some children grow up continuing to believe the fairy tale rather than realise it's just a fairy tale you're told as a kid to behave. All the rest of it, you're told about Santa Claus as well as a child, right? This mysterious fat figure that comes down your imaginary chimney and places all your dreams, desires in front of you for Christmas Day. And yet, miraculously, to coin a religious phrase, adults don't really go into their adulthood still believing in Santa Claus. A few do, but very few. So no faith, no religion, and like most people who are indoctrinated into religion, because you don't suddenly wake up and if no one's ever told you about Jesus Christ or Muhammad or Moses or any of the other soothsayers, you don't know them unless somebody's told you about them, you know? And so you have an existential crisis. You think, okay, well, if everything I've been told is a crock of bull, where is there a truth? What is the meaning? And then you have, thankfully, science. And so about 10 years ago, I started reading into quantum mechanics and started following some professors, because the joy of YouTube is it gives you access to lectures for free. And the more I started to read science, the less and less I had any time at all for a man-made social construct that we have a master in the heavens whilst we remain slaves on earth. So, no.
Okay, very comprehensive answer. You mentioned science. That's quite interesting. So, do you think it's incompatible, religion and science, fully, or?
That's a good question. Incompatible. I thought about this long and hard. My mother's Irish, so she's still got that hankering that there is some magic place up in the skies. I don't think it's. I'm not one of these strict doctrinarial type people that says if you believe this, you're not allowed to believe that. I believe in free will. Believe whatever you want to believe, so long as you don't rub other people's noses in it. And frankly, religion should be one of those things that there should be no proselytizing whatsoever. If you happen to believe, be happy and keep it to yourself. This whole way that religion is now crept into politics, into the media, mass media, it's a sham. It's a total sham, and I don't stand for that. On the other hand, I'm aware of many famous scientists who say they still believe in a almighty, and that's down to the individual. Who am I to tell them you're slightly schizophrenic in your thinking? No, it's individuals.
Yeah.
But as a state organised phenomena, religion, I'm not into that at all.
Right.
And I'm deeply concerned that in a country that I love dearly, been to many times in the United States, I'm on Twitter a fair bit, and it amazes me when I speak to my American friends just how in a country where the founding fathers said absolutely there is going to be a separation of state and religion for good reasons. You know, don't forget the founding fathers who left not just far from the road, down the road from here, Deptford. They left this country because of religious persecution. And then word got back to Europe, this is a new land, you can come and practice whatever religious beliefs you like. So loads of Lutherans went over, and loads of other Christian religious sects went over. And of course they ended up bringing what they brought with them from Europe, because most Europeans they have memories like goldfishes, right? They forget that Europe has been riddled for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, I'll say hundreds one more time, of years with religious wars. Hundreds of years. And when they started to kick off in North America, the founding fathers rightly said, no, we've escaped Europe because of that nonsense. So what we're going to have now in our constitution is a complete demarcation between your personal beliefs and organised religion and the business of government. And unfortunately, the last few presidential elections, and I'm of the opinion that politics, whether they're Democrat, Republican, Conservative, Labour, they're all pretty much of a muchness. They don't do much for the working class man. And this notion now that you can't become president in America unless you walk around with a magic book is farcical. And I think that's deeply disturbing. There should be no holy book of any description so that you can win favour with the electorate. No. We have laws. So remember, I forget who it was, it might have been President Adam who said the United States, we're a country, we're a republic of laws, not a republic of men. And that's really important. So I have about this much time divided by 1,000 for religion. Very little time for religion. If you believe in it and it makes you happy, very happy for you. And if you don't believe in it, you shouldn't be persecuted for it. You shouldn't find yourself in employment situations because of it. And certainly if you wanted to put your head above the parapet and go into public office, politics, there's no way you should have to be boasting about your holy credentials. You know, it's just a joke. So I'm not into that at all. Yeah.
Which is fair. I mean, I would say you're not against public discourse about religion.
Oh,
you're just trying to sort of make sure it doesn't play a role within state policies, government,
yes, absolutely,
and that it's
absolutely
not kind of shoved on people's.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, interesting. Just to get your thoughts. I get the sense that actually, if anything, religion is being pushed out. Like if there was anything about the link between religion and politics over the last couple of decades, if anything, we're seeing less of it, not more of it. How would you?
Less of religion and
Certainly,
not more
well,
of it.
certainly in Europe. So, for example,
Okay, but then it
even with
depends.
the coronation, right? The coronation meaning one religion, let's
Yes,
say,
yes.
and such as an act as a coronation, right? We've seen that one, it was toned down, but number two, it was kind of watered down in the sense
Absolutely.
that it was just many different faiths and other things, right? That's just one example.
Yes,
maybe
our
of
king
that,
describes himself as the defender of all faiths.
yeah. Right. Versus
And I
defender
think
of
what
Christian
he's
faith.
yes, and I think what he's trying to say is I'm a defender of tolerance,
Right.
because that's what Charlie Boy has always been about, tolerance.
Yeah.
But we have in this country certain religious minorities that come with dire consequences, and we have a mayor of London that shares platforms with religious extremists and tries to fob it off as to say that, oh no, he didn't mean anything by that. He's a disgrace of a mayor. And just as an aside, I mark my words on this, I'm glad you're recording this. I'm London born and bred, South East London born and bred, a proper local, state comprehensive. When I grew up, being working class, there was no shame. In the 70s, everyone was skin. In the early 80s, everyone was unemployed, right? That's why Maggie Thatcher had to come into power. So we've seen this Mayor of London, 2 terms, destroy the goose that has laid the golden egg. And the goose, I'm talking about the square mile in the city. He's disrespected the mandate given during the Brexit vote in 2016, absolutely refused to acknowledge it. Claims that we'd be better off in Europe despite the fact the European Union is a busted flush and the only one who buys Euro bonds are, guess what, the European Central Bank. You don't get institutions wanting to touch Euro bonds because they're like dogs with fleas on. And yet this half-wit mayor, who's a secret jihadist, you don't share platforms with people who chant death to America unless you're somehow sympathetic to their cause. And don't forget, after the 2005 terrorist attacks in London, Sadiq Khan famously came out and blamed the British government for it. You know, that old chestnut. And it sickens me, and what they're trying to do now is this financial equivalency so that we're going to have to obey the EU's financial rules, right? And it's going to be a total disaster. So they have disrespected the vote of the people, which I think is disgraceful, because we've always known that in this country, the one thing that has saved us from the mania of the European politics is we have first past the post. Not proportional representation, which is just bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay, first past the post. Put your money where your mouth is and put your vote on the X on the ticket that counts. Not, my first choice, my second choice. No. That's not how politics gets done.
Right.
You know, this is why the European Union got voted out in this country. And remember this, my friends. To vote against the European Union in this country, you had to go against the propaganda of the bullshit broadcasting corporation, otherwise known as the BBC. You had to go against all of the broadcast networks, so that's your Channel 4 News, your ITV, let alone BBC Two and all the rest of them, and about half of the printed media, and the sitting government that had a majority. To vote against that tells you unequivocally that despite all the crap that the mass media put down our throats, mass unemployment, remember that one? Massive crash of the pound, massive collapse of our economy. Nobody would want to come to these shores anymore. Well, since that Brexit vote was completed, we've had more people visiting our shores, so actual net migration is up at the highest it's ever been in living memory. The economy is doing far better than France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Portugal. I mean, the list could go on. So all of the doomsaying promoted by the likes of Christine Lagarde at the IMF at the time how she's ended up as the head of the ECB is almost as hilarious as that other cowboy, Mario Draghi, who, by the way, if you want to know why the European Union is screwed, that little banker nutjob was the guy who came up with the harebrained idea of negative interest rates, right? Negative interest rates. So you bungle along to your bank with 100 grand, that bank's going to charge you money to deposit in their bank account. That was the big-brained idea of Mario Draghi, and the whole of the European Union and the European Central Bank went, oh, this is wonderful. This will sort all our debts out. So it's so dim-witted and short-termism. It's tragedy, really. And of course, the other thing I want you to know this about coming from Croatia, because Croatia is very keen to get into the euro, but I've noticed it's not adopted the euro.
It has actually from this year.
From this year. Back to religion, back to faith.
Indeed.
So, with religion, with faith, in this country, on the whole, we have a comme ci, comme ça, but there is one religion in this country, Islam, that you cannot say anything about. You cannot criticize it, you cannot make a judgment call on it, you can't have an opinion, because if you do, you're labelled an Islamophobe.
Yeah.
Now, I grew up watching Monty Python Life of Brian. If we were to do a Monty Python Life of Brian about instead of Christianity, switch out one prophet for another prophet, can you imagine what would happen? In this country there was a film banned, no cinema complex would release it, a Muslim Islamic film, and a bunch of the jihadis up the north of England where they dominate the north of England, like totally dominate, like totally, right, came out and protested and said, you showing this film is sacrilegious, it's an offence against Islam. These same men, because they're always blokes, aren't they, you know, pathetic little creatures, what did they say when the fellow Muslim went into one of their holy mosques on the holy day and blew themselves and 100 other people up? What did they say? Nothing. What did they say about their own sectarianism? Nothing. So Shia can slaughter Sunni, they can slaughter whoever they want, Sufi, Yazidi, doesn't matter. No, you can't say they won't say a word about the atrocities committed in the name of their religion, their holy people. It's appalling, and I'm actually in touch with loads of Muslims that have tried to escape the faith, and even in this country they get death threats. You know, I'll say this about Catholicism is when you've decided you've had enough of the Holy See, nobody gives a shit. Off you go and explore your life. But in Islam, no. It's like the mafia. Once you're in for life. You can never escape. And if you try and escape, they'll persecute you, they'll punish you, they'll come after you. So, yeah, most of my Muslim friends are in agreement with me about the problems with sectarianism in their own culture and faith. What I find curious is why the Western media kowtows to it.
Interesting question, fear maybe or something. But if I may, maybe just staying with Christianity just for the moment,
yes,
right?
Yes.
I think something you initially mentioned, fairy tales and other things. Like, it'd be quite interesting for me to understand sort of what is it that you are rejecting? What do you think is unpalatable about the message? Just
Okay.
your understanding.
My strongest subject in school is history. You learn primary, secondary, tertiary evidence. The primary evidence that a bloke called Jesus walked the earth is zilch. What's curious is the Romans were methodical note takers. Caesar wrote hundreds of letters. Many of them have survived. Many of them survived. And yet there is not a single documentation that this bloke, who if he was walking the earth at the time and causing the media storm he was causing back in those days, you would have thought perhaps, possibly, somebody so significant as a long-haired, blonde, blue-eyed bloke in the Palestine would have stood out like a sore thumb, and whatever he had to say might have been noted down and said, yeah, there's this bloke called Jesus. But there's nothing. So all we have is secondary stroke tertiary evidence. And of course we all know what happens to secondary evidence, other words hearsay. And when once hearsay is then further diluted by tertiary evidence, you end up with fantastical stories of miracles, feats that defy science and common sense. And actually, if he did exist, I've always thought he was probably, like was common in those days, where there were many men that were very holy, disagreed with the status quo at the time, and tried to rock the boat. We have it today. So if he did exist, he was a normal man. The notion that he was, and I love the fact, no one seems to find it so with claptrap. I know why, because back 2,000 years ago, man wasn't as sophisticated as we are today. So you had to tell stories. The written word wasn't as common as it is today. There were no printing presses. Everything was papyrus. Everything took much longer. So word of mouth lends itself to, especially in the human condition, to explaining complex theological matters with creative language. And what's happened is the creative language has been taken verbatim, and it was only the scholars at the time that would read the creative and try to explain to the illiterate, this isn't the literal meaning, this is the analogy. And all of this has been completely, utterly lost. And I've sat down with Jesuit theologians, my own cousin is a theologian, and every time I get them with why they have to revert to this notion of miracles, it's really just, it's just embarrassing, really. It's the adult fairy tale told to children that some children grow up still believing, ultimately. So I don't buy it. No, I don't buy it. No.
Going back to the issue of primary, secondary, tertiary evidence, sounds like you've done a bit of studying, but I thought that the most of scholars still at least agreed that there was a person called Jesus, right? Whether he did those things
they
or
can,
not.
Scholars, they can agree all they like as far as I'm concerned, but for me, I haven't read any primary evidence, not a shred, that shows any evidence of him, his family, which is interesting. Think of this, forget the piss take about blonde hair, blue eyes. Unmarried. In their culture, back then, not possible. Not possible.
That he was unmarried? Or?
Completely, yeah.
Well, holy men were generally not married, like you have
No.
case of John the Baptist.
Holy men got to dip their wick in loads of places, which is why they preach one place, had a little affair and had to scarper off to another one. Listen, holy men, right, okay. In the Catholic Church, the only reason why they stopped priests from marrying, was to stop the hereditary lineage to the papacy.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Old Testament prophets, right?
So holy men, right up until the 16th century, were shagging like blue blazes, and in the Roman Catholic Church were married.
I'm talking about Elijah, Elisha, Samuel. People
all had wives
of the Jewish tradition,
and especially of the Jewish tradition, had wives. It is the notion that you didn't have a wife back then. Think about it. Over 2,000 years ago, there's no NHS, there's no safety net, there's no government. It is community, pure and simple. It is a religious community, pure and simple. Religion, big chunk of religion, with a lot of commerce. You had to sell your sweat to earn money. So this notion that holy men had said no to women, we're going to be holy. No, I'm sorry, no. No, especially back then. Yeah. So I don't agree with that at all, I'm afraid. Yeah.
How would you summarize then? What is the message of Christianity, to your understanding?
Depends who the message is to and who it's coming from, which I know is a terrible, glib answer, but Christianity. I was just about to say Christ. I think the message that I took is that you should be tolerant, non-judgmental, accepting, which I know is like tolerance, but there's a difference, and not to do ill will to your fellow man. That's about it.
But you could argue that that message is similar to in other religions.
Yeah.
What makes it unique in Christianity?
It's no, it's not unique. And the thing is, Christianity is one of many religions. Hinduism was going along long before Christianity was even a thought process. Like you said earlier, there were many holy men back in the day, and they spoke their word, so to speak, because there was, again, I repeat, no books. Okay, no books, and this was just how people made their living. You know, like today, we've still got holy men that make their living like that today.
Yeah. But we still, I mean, Christianity must be separate from other religions for a good reason, right? I mean, that's what I guess getting to. What is making it separate? Why are we not calling Christianity just Hinduism reformed or is
well, I know it's
Christianity-
monotheist, but
Yeah.
being monotheist is just an intellectual sort of pursuit, really. It's not. That doesn't define. I heard this bloke once, this American dude, coming up against one of my favourite authors, Christopher Hitchens, who you should read if you haven't. And he tried to explain that one of the unique concepts of Christianity and why it must be true over the other world religions is because of monotheism. And what was so embarrassing was that he named Hinduism as a good example as to why Hinduism can possibly be believable. It's 330 million gods after all. And why Christianity, being monotheistic, must therefore be more plausible. But what this half-wit didn't understand is that when you know Hindu religion, and you take all the gods and you go all the way back to there is one original monotheistic God from which all the others come. Well, we have all our angels and all our apostles. Well, in Hinduism, they have all their gods, but there is the one. So this idiot's claim that Christianity was the only monotheistic global religion was taken out of his arse. So Christianity has got nothing unique in religion, nothing whatsoever. It says that there's an almighty upstairs that created everything, and they had a holy person on earth to spread the good word.
Yeah. What was the good word? I mean, what was the good word?
Like
right?
I said, love thy neighbour.
Yeah. But ultimately, he said he came to die, right? That was what I would propose to you. That was the difference, right? So
I would say he didn't say that. I would say that others said that of him. And it's interesting. What always struck me, even as a child, was when we were being told the story about him being nailed to the cross, which is always a good thing to tell a little nipper about such a brutal form of execution. There's one famous line, and I must have been about 6 or 7 years old when I first read this, and it always struck me when it's at the point when he's getting lanced in the side gut, and he looks and he calls out, he says, "Father, why have you beseeched his father, why have you allowed them to do this to me?" And it was at that point that I thought, well, if you've said you've already known you're being here to pay the ultimate price, why are you now bitching about it on the cross if this is what you knew was going to happen? Ergo, he didn't know it was going to happen. Ergo, any human being nailed to a cross would show their true colours. He was born a human and he died a human. And I think it's really tragic that we had to make him to be something more than what he actually ever was.
But you can't accept one thing that he said that he was said to have said, and then reject the other thing that he was said.
Well,
to have
no,
said.
I can, because look, if he's on the cross and he's saying, "I beseech thee,"
He's quoting Old Testament verses about himself. He did that many times, right?
yeah. But
So
look,
we have to understand what the context of those Old
yeah,
Testament
but what
verses
I
were.
understand also is he ain't saying it when he's sitting down eating a bowl of soup and drinking a sup of wine. He's saying it whilst he's getting lanced on the cross. Specifically, then is when he makes that reference.
Yeah, and do you understand what that
and
meant?
and
Yeah.
this is really important. We have something in this country called SIC, situation in context, and it's really important for me that, first of all, you can imagine, right, where I grew up, we grew up hungry. Yeah? And every single Sunday I had to see my old dear give me some tuppence in my hand to put into a collection box for the world's wealthiest church, whilst me and my family are hungry. Yeah? When I first went to Rome in 1981-82, what struck me the most when I went into St. Peter's was all the gold, rubies, marble, the wealth, the extravagance. And I came away from that experience and I came back to London. I said, "Mum, you ain't giving this outfit another penny. They're fucking loaded. They're so loaded it ain't funny." The Vatican Bank is the most powerful bank in the world. It's the oldest bank in the world. Why are they tapping up working class people for money? It's despicable. The notion that if there was some geezer called Jesus that bowled around him those years ago, do you think he'd be happy that people who are skint and children who are going hungry are giving what they don't got into a collection box to a organisation that is the wealthiest organisation on planet Earth? Cuckoo! It's nuts. Nuts. For me, I don't have ill will towards religion, but I'm yet to see the good that religion has yet done in society. Yeah.
Tom Holland, famous non-Christian scholar, he wrote a book recently called Dominion.
Yes.
He made a very, very strong argument that the reason that the rise of the Western society is largely due to the Christian religion. And you and I are beneficiary of
I
that.
don't
as we
dispute
even
that at all.
speak,
Listen,
right?
the Hitchens, my hero, has often said, and he's like a proud atheist, or was a proud atheist, has always paid homage to the contribution that religion
There
has
you go.
made
There's some contribution.
in terms of art, music,
Laws.
architecture.
Laws,
Not
structure.
not laws.
Hospitals, universities.
Not laws, not hospitals.
Yes, very much so.
None of that stuff.
Who found it? Who
that's
hospitallers,
because of SIC. That's because they had the money to do it.
Doesn't matter.
It does matter, and also because very quickly after they were very successful at doing that, we very thankfully in this country, we decided hundreds of years ago, well, we'll have a few schools that don't have all that claptrap, thank you very much. And they're still doing rather well. Eton, for example.
Yeah.
And don't conflate, for what religion has given society on the one hand. Do you want to do a bit of academic research and know how many lost souls have been killed in wars of religion in Europe? Just Europe.
A lot more.
Not Palestine, not Africa, not South America, just in Europe.
Yes, so you can Google the number of wars, the number of people killed for religious or non-religious wars. The top, I think, 2 or 3 wars had nothing to do with religion, right? So you got your World War I, World War II. You got the pogroms in Asia and Stalinist Russia and China.
Okay, so that's
Mao.
the 20th century.
Yeah.
So if we take the 20th century
Talking
to the
about
side,
volume of people, number of people,
if
right?
we take the 20, but there wasn't a volume of people. The volume of people in Europe in the 15th century was a lot less than the volume of people in the 20th century, right?
Yeah.
Right. So therefore the numbers are going to be less, right?
So in the
20th century.
So you're arguing in the
So
Middle Ages
no.
that the
So
people killed themselves
hang
because
on
of
a second.
religion.
Hang on a second. In the Middle Ages, Christians, the lot that believed in the Pope and the lot that were anti the Pope, murdered the hell out of each other, right?
Right.
Yeah. And what were those numbers?
Well, no, don't have the numbers. to
You
hand.
should look it up.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying,
Before you tell me about 20th century death toll compared to thousands of years of religious death toll of the 20th century, the First World War was a joke of a war that should never have happened. Britain should never have got involved. Wilhelm and the French should have sorted it out amongst themselves. But anyway, we're English, so we got involved. The Second World War was to defeat Nazism. You do realise that, don't you?
Well, my argument is not
So
yeah.
Nazism to defeat cannot be compared to sectarian wars for the past 2,000 years, right?
Yeah.
One is Nazism and the other is sectarianism.
My argument
Big
is not,
difference between. So
well,
you can't. The equivalency that you just tried to slip in don't stand.
No, so my argument was not defending religion.
Not argument.
Well,
Your point.
My point was not defending religion. My point was saying that wars get started for ideology, whatever the ideology is, whether it's political or religious in nature. It's ideology that drives war, not religion per se.
No, I disagree. It's religious ideology.
Okay, well, we can agree maybe to disagree.
It's called religious. When you say ideology, well, what ideology started the war? It was a religious ideology that started the war.
Well, you said yourself,
France,
right?
Belgium, Holland, Spain, our own country, England.
What wars did they start for religious
Oh,
reasons?
dude, look at this house here.
Yeah.
1607, Jacobean.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? Catholics against the Protestants.
Yes.
Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, so the civil wars, right?
So, no, religious wars.
Right. No,
Do not-
You talk
do
about
not-
a European, you talk about other countries,
I'm
right?
telling you now
You talk about
that
Belgium,
religion
France.
has been the single largest contributory factor to wars in mainland Europe for several hundreds of years.
As opposed to what? As opposed to what other reasons would you recognize were the reasons for the wars? Are there any other reasons?
Yeah, of course there are.
Yeah.
Man.
Okay.
Man being thick, greedy,
And that's
arrogant,
my point.
power grab, land grab.
That's
But if
exactly
they
my
didn't
point.
have religion to inflame men's
That's my point,
stupidity,
exactly. Yeah, that's my point.
and if they weren't allowed to get away with butchering what their holy, this is what makes me laugh about people who believe in religion, is they have absolutely no sense of why other people think that if you believe in religion, there's something wrong with you upstairs. You see, this is like what I find fascinating with believers, is you only believe because you were told. That's it, you were told. If you had been born on a desert island and you had no contact with mankind, you would not believe in a fairy tale creator. You would not even know of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed geezer from the Palestine. It's so embarrassing that your only way of believing is because you have been told. End of story.
I don't understand that point with respect, right?
No,
So-
that's fine, because you're going to try and pick hairs in it, but you know exactly when you go home and you think about this logically. Think about this.
No, but
Think about this. It's really simple.
Sure.
Water
Yeah.
is a molecule
Yeah. How do I know that?
made of one part hydrogen
Someone told me.
and two
Yeah.
parts of oxygen.
Correct.
It wasn't just somebody told you,
Yeah, someone
Captain.
told me that,
There was a
yeah.
trail of evidence that
someone
you
did
can,
the research,
you
yeah.
can know that you can reproduce.
That person
you
on the
can,
island.
you
That
can,
person on the island
you
would
can
never do that.
reproduce the
Yeah.
evidence,
Right, that person on the island would
and
never
you
do that.
cannot reproduce the evidence of religion. You cannot.
I can reproduce the evidence of a creator, for example.
You can of God.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you 5 minutes.
The existence of the creation is the evidence of the creator, right? Something from nothing is logically impossible, right?
No,
You have to-
no,
you have to
no,
go
no,
from
no,
that
no. See,
perspective,
this
yeah.
is where you need to go back and read quantum mechanics.
Okay, go ahead.
No.
No.
I'll tell you what, my friend. You go off and read some quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
This is, my mum lives just the other side of here. I bowl through here most Sundays at about 5:30 to have a fag and contemplate this beautiful Jacobean property as the sun sets. You read a quantum mechanics book.
Yeah.
I'll go through one of my old Bibles and I'll meet you back here next Sunday.
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah. But
Let me think of a good author for you to read. Lawrence Krauss.
yeah. Okay.
Krauss spelt in the German
I
way.
know Krauss. I know Lawrence Krauss very well. I've listened to him many times. I've listened to.
Oh, Sean Carroll then.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've not heard of him.
Oh, you'd like him. In fact, it was Sean Carroll or Sean B. Carroll. He is a supporter, a devotee of a guy called Hugh Everett III. And you need to read about him, obviously. And then it was through reading about Hugh Everett III that I then found out about Sean B. Carroll, watched some of his lectures, read some of his books. And your famous line that I've heard all the religious nuts come out with, that you can't create something out of nothing. Well, when you read those books, I'll see you back here on Sunday and you'll tell me that that's exactly what happens in the universe.
Okay. No, we can go through that, certainly.
And honestly, my friend, if you believe and you're happy believing, keep being happy believing, but I wasn't happy believing.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
And,
I'm just here to understand your reasons for it. Right?
And I'm much happier knowing this very fashionable phrase of the 21st century, my truth.
Yeah, indeed, very, very constructive. But just before we sort of, because I think we went off on a tangent, right? I was trying to get to the sense of the reason, the unique claim of the Christian faith.
No, there ain't one.
So just to continue that thought. So the reason we went into the wars and other things was, which I would completely agree, is like you said, very articulated man is the reason, right? So at the core of the Christian belief, of even Judeo-Christian belief, is that there is something wrong with us, right? Something is wrong with our nature. We tend to do evil things, right?
No, I don't agree with that
Sin.
premise. I don't agree with that premise.
But let me just finish. So
Okay.
it is because of
Just
that.
wiping my mouth. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go on, I'm listening.
So it is because of that Jesus claimed to have come, right? So to deal ultimately with the sin in our lives, not to try to reform the world, not to try to change the political system or to try to make people do better things. He knew that we are not able to do better things because we ultimately fail. That's the story of the Old Testament Bible, is that they continue to fail. They continue to fail. That's why.
And then Jesus pops along.
He comes along, right, and he provides a sacrifice for the sins that we as human beings have done, so that
And also continue to make the same sins as we did before he arrived.
But now,
So let me get this absolutely crystal clear in your logic.
Yeah, go ahead.
Man's up to no good and is riddled with sin.
Yeah.
God thinks that we've got to do something about this.